everybody. Welcome to the latest technical steering committee for the baseline protocol. Seems like we have a lot of folks on the call already, and we'll be admitting more, keeping an eye on it. Hi Didier, hi Eric, hi Stefan, Jory, Kyle.
Hello.
Eric, you look like the mystery man.
Well, my lighting is a little different today.
Yeah. Denise, Sam Stokes is coming in. Ryan Chamberlain, Connor Svensson. We got a full crew today.
Fair warning, John, I only have 30 minutes today. Apologies for that.
No worries at all. I think this is a special meeting of the TSC. It's at the normal time, but it is a special meeting from the perspective of the fact that we have some good things to review. We have some things to look forward to, and we have some decisions to make. So this is really going to be a working meeting where everybody should turn on their mics to talk and to have input. This is not a passive meeting with reporting from a variety of people. This one is really going to be a discussion with the TSC members participating in their full capacity. So I put up the agenda, but there's really only two items on the agenda today. One is a light retrospective of the experience we had getting to V0.1 and how we want to organize going forward. And very related to that, how we want to organize and go forward with the standards body or the standards working group, which becomes the key thing we're doing as of now. So with that, and clearly I'd like to reiterate the introduction we made to Anissa Frank, who is just by simply stepping up and taking action and making it a part of her life has become effectively a leader of the standards work. And that's a lesson to everybody, that anybody that wants to be a leader, code and work talks and everything else walks. So Anise, thanks for being a leader in that space, and we will all be working hard to support it. And that doesn't mean there can only be one leader as well. So anybody else that wants to make sure that their voices are heard, the standards team is where it's going to be at in the coming months. Why is that? It's because we have a version 0.1 protocol, core code, and a reference implementation, BRI 1, in the can, out the door. Congratulations to the team that built that. I don't know if you can hear my clapping. I'm not sure which setting I've got it on.
It's filtered.
Did it get filtered?
Yeah, it sure did.
Use the clap reaction in Zoom.
There you go. The upside of that filter is that you can't hear anything else but my voice, but the downside is you can't hear anything else. So with that, Kyle, would you like to give a quick review of what we did, what's out there, make sure that the TSC team knows precisely what we have in the public today?
Sure. Yeah, so it's under core in the repo. We've created there's a handful of packages defining interfaces and the protocol message format and privacy package interface, and there's an empty sort of a stub persistence package that I think will be getting a lot of attention soon. It'll probably get the next wave of attention, especially as we start working on standards. Its purpose, if it's not clear, is to interact with systems of record, and in a similar pattern to how the other packages are laid out. So the package was bootstrapped, but it's sort of stuff. So then you have under examples, BRI1, you have a base example, and that's essentially an implementation of all of the interfaces defined in the API package. And you know, it also has, BRI1 also has a lib directory, which has a couple of the ERP connectors from the previous demos, which were built out of band, but helped inform this first effort. And so those can be, with a little bit of additional effort, wired together with the base example to show sort of a pattern for how reference implementations can be distributed in the baseline project repo. Is that clear, John?
Clear to me. Everybody else? Questions? I'll ask one kind of prompting question. Maybe we can get some more out of that. And that is, well, it's probably worth going into the nature of the BRIs. So during the release process, towards the end, and uncomfortably towards the end, we had a meeting with the maintainers, and the maintainers kind of worked out a way of approaching the difference between the core packages and the reference implementation in such a way. And Jory, I'm looking at you to make sure that we're in compliance with OASIS practices here. We said, you know, anybody can create a reference implementation and contribute that back to the community. They can also contribute. They can do it on their own. They can just simply create their own reference implementation and never tell us at all about it, because it's open source and under the CC0 universal license. But if they do want to, as Kyle and others did, contribute that back to the open source community, then it will go into a numbered reference implementation folder. Right now we have BRI1, and technically we have Radish 34. So Radish 34 being not really a reference implementation, but it's in the same place. It just doesn't actually use the core libraries because it preceded them. So all future reference implementations, they can be quite opinionated, as this one is, right? This one uses provide and nethermind and nats. I could turn around and make one with a bunch of different components with a different way of doing things, as long as it adheres to the core libraries or contributes back to core libraries, saying, hey, and then, you know, we can have a discussion about, you know, changes to the core libraries, and the folks in BRI1 might argue with the folks in BRI2 about different changes to the standard, right? And then Anis and the team will step in and say, all right, let's have that argument. Let's discuss what the industry standard ought to be. So it is right and proper that there is an opinionated release with BRI1. At least that is my assertion. Does anyone dissent? All right, cool. So I think that's worth understanding with real clarity at the TSC level, so that nobody starts to wonder, hey, wait a minute, what is baseline now nats and nethermind? And no, it's the reference implementation. And I think that, again, the team that built the reference implementation deserve a lot of credit for the way they abstracted out the core libraries. If you look at them, and I know Sam Stokes and Brian and Eric and others have been looking at this, the work is pretty nicely abstracted. Would anybody disagree? Are there areas where we need to improve that? Urgently, I should say. There's always improvement.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, definitely not urgently. I mean, down the line, as and when there is like subsequent implementations, then it might make sense to move some of the, you know, say the smart contracts, for instance, that, you know, out of like the, you know, into a separate repo, so that you get that separation of concerns for different languages. But definitely not immediate concern. I think it's more as and when there is a subsequent implementation.
Right on. Jory, are you having, am I being hard? Is my audio bad?
No, it was me earlier. Sorry, John.
Oh, no worries. Sure. Right. So yeah, I think that makes sense, Connor. What other discussion would we like to have about this? There are several points that we can bring up. I'll start a couple, and then it would be great if everybody could put on their conversation hats. This is definitely the day to have a full-throated conversation about what we did, what we're doing, how we should alter trajectory going forward. So one thing was, the release process I thought went very well compared to previous releases. In certain aspects, we had the press well briefed in advance with a defined delivery date that we did not slip, and that is terrific. We did have to scramble right at the end, right down to about an hour after we released. Denise and Kyle and I were frantically fixing docs. The code was done in time, and by all accounts, the code is, people really think that it's high quality work. So far, I haven't seen any, and I've neither seen nobody paying attention, nor have I seen lots of flame throwing at it. If nobody was paying attention, you wouldn't see any flame throwing. People are paying attention. You're seeing the numbers go up. The people are forking it, looking at it. But we're also not seeing people go, "This is terrible." So that's good. That's a good sign. The documentation, I think, and this is largely on me. I got a little bit ill in the last rounds of the work, and it was on me to do a lot of the documentation. And I don't think I did as good of a job as I'd like to. But we pulled it out. I think it's minimally okay, and we'll keep on improving upon it. So those are some things that we learned. What else went right? I mean, how do people, especially the maintainers, what went right during this release cycle?
I think the communication between the maintainers went quite well on Friday in retrospect. So it was quite productive. Hard conversation, but it was good.
I would like to add that it was great seeing that as init core was being developed, the documentation on GitHub was being either updated or more developed. So it was helping even pre-release to follow up the work. And there is a lot of value. On my side, I found a lot of value in this. So that was great.
From my perspective, it seemed very organized, and things were really clear. My role as an OASIS staff member is just to support, watch, and help keep track, and it was very easy to do that. So I was impressed with the organization.
I can edit all of this dead space out in post, so I can wait as long as you like.
Oh, don't dare John in this type of situation. He can hold out for quite a while.
I was enjoying the silence.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't notice any issues, but I'm not necessarily close enough to the process to detect the smaller issues. Macro from the outside looked like it went pretty well.
I put it in chat, but I'll say it audibly here. I think golf clap for Avia and Masij and folks who did that terrific video. Has anybody not seen that?
Yeah, that is pretty good.
It's great. And in particular, Anise, the section where you're talking about how you found baseline protocol on Google and YouTube and how you researched it. That was so good.
That's literally what happened. So I just had to say those are the steps that I took, and yeah, it was great that she was able to map everything like boom, boom, boom. Like that was really, really well done.
I really think that it's going to inspire a lot of people who might not have felt the courage to get involved. I think sometimes people need a little help there. In video wise, clearly the videos. I want to do this every time any project I'm doing from now on. We just booked 1/2 hour, could have been 15 minutes every day for 2 or 3 weeks. And sometimes for Kyle, for example, wouldn't be able to make it, or somebody couldn't make it. We would just drop it. But it was every day we had this little bit of time to go on camera and discuss the code. And then we were able to edit that together again. The Provide family was able to pitch in at the last moment and get those edited properly, make sure that there were no embarrassing gaffes. By the way, if there are any things that we missed there that should come out, because enterprises will be watching those videos, I would love it if this team saw it first. So you might want to look at those videos and call us urgently if you see anything that was not right in them, or if they're confusing. I mean, one thing I think we can improve upon, Kyle, there is that each one should probably have a little intro and outro. But I think it starts with one and goes through six little vignettes. I thought those were really good.
Just while we're on the subject of the video, the community video that you just mentioned, I think it would be great to have that on the Baseline main website, because so many companies and products now, it's all about, you get on the landing page and there's a video there to watch. And just maybe, I don't know if the full kind of how is it, 5 minutes, or just the full video, or just maybe even an edited down one, but just having something there that someone can click and just start watching straight away. I think that would be very, very helpful.
That's a great idea. Jory's thinking, oh no, more work on the website. By the way, kudos to Jory for she said she does what she says, and she says what she does. She did that. She said that she would improve the website, evolve it to a place where we could very quickly add releases and new news, and it worked just right. Oh, one thing, Jory, on that. I think we're cutting off at 1 story on the main page. It'd be great if we could up that to 3 features, I think. Maybe 2.
It would also be helpful if those were above the fold, like above follow the discussion. So you got like the latest news kind of thing.
Great idea. I'll put these in the minutes, of course.
And of course, there's a repo for the Baseline website. So if anybody, if you do spot an issue or something you want to surface, you can do that too, and I'll see it there.
Yeah, is there a general plan to kind of expand the video series into the kind of technical explainer direction? Just curious if we could go a little deeper on that side.
I think we can.
All right. Yeah, I mean, for other projects, those have been particularly helpful to get kind of engineers and developers that are a little more in the medium range, and maybe they don't quite grasp crypto and baselining and meaning cryptography. Sorry, I'll say the whole word, etc. So I've generally found that if you can get those technical explainer videos out, especially things that walk through the entire high-level process and then start drilling down, you can onboard a lot more developers in a meaningful way, meaning that they actually the end state is they can actually produce code. Rather than just viewing something and then turfing out somewhere later in the process when they get frustrated. So just a little bit of advice there for maybe getting a little deeper on the videos.
I just pitching something that's kind of related to what Eric's saying there, and this is just having, there's the sample projects, but having like a getting started, so that when people, you look at docs for most projects, it's like, once you go from the website, you say, okay, I want to have a go with this, and there's like a clear way of how to actually, run the code and go with it. There's a lot of information on the documentation, but I think it's one thing it is missing is just that kind of first entry point, because I always think about it like a marketing funnel, where it's like you get drop off, and it's like the harder you make it for someone to get started, the further they've got to dig, the less likely they are to sign up for the service or try out the product.
Yeah, if you'd like, I can update a README. I actually posted one in Slack with the instructions on how to run it. So maybe that's a good update.
Because I think there's two angles. There's the GitHub page, because I know point for like the sample repos there, but just having like literally, even if it's as much as clone the repo, then run this, but then at least it's like someone can run some code and get that satisfaction,
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think that's what Nick is saying as well there in the chat is we need that strong pathway both from GitHub and from the website to just draw someone immediately who's interested in developing into a very clean getting started pipeline and a very clean, almost wizard flow, right? The old wizard flow idea, right? Of just pumping them right into getting to something meaningful that they can, even if it's a hello world or maybe something even a little bit more than that, or create your first baseline between two data elements or whatever it is. A few of those will do wonders to getting people practically being able to use the project rather than just hits on the website that don't equal any code in the community.
Yeah, I think that's right, Eric and Connor. I think that kudos again to the current iteration. We may have to pip this up a bit, but we pip this up. I don't know what that means. It just came out of my head. We need to increase the awareness, but there is and this should be the standard way for all BRIs to do this. There is a folder in there called base example. And that is, in this case, the hello world of that reference implementation. And the videos 5 and 6 of the set that you can find on the details page will take you into that, into setting that up. And I think we can do even better at improving that and making it more of a standard thing. And we should, for future reference implementations, make sure that they always include kind of a hello world for their BRI.
Yep, sounds right.
It'd be great, Eric, if you could take a look at those videos 5 and 6 and maybe give some feedback on how we could improve them. It'd be super awesome.
Okay.
I know you're really busy, but and it doesn't have to be right away.
Yep, that's cool.
Okay, so what any other things that people felt went really well? Okay, so there's obviously in a good retro, the question is what can we improve upon? What can we do better? I think we've already come up with a couple of things. I'll offer one. I think going forward now, I think we will expect to see less key person risk. Let's admit it. Kyle did a huge job, and Karthik did a second hugest job, and the rest of us worked really hard to keep up, and that's great. But now, and I think it probably was almost necessary for getting to V01. Going forward, if folks don't know, we have some really big companies. Jory, I don't think I'm allowed to say it on tape here, but another big giant accounting / consulting firm has sponsored and is preparing their press release. And other companies are doing the same. And so we're going to get a lot more activity, especially now that we have a good abstract generalized core set of libraries to work with. Also meeting with SAP and Oracle, had a meeting with Oracle yesterday, having another meeting with SAP. They seem to be very friendly to this work. I won't make any claims for them beyond that, but they seem to be very friendly to the work. In fact, there was an article out just the other day saying that they were friendly about the work. So as the industry intensity, as people's jobs and as people's revenue streams become dependent upon baselining, the intensity will go up. The professionalism needs to go up. And that's not to say we weren't professional on this round of the game, but as somebody once told me, it was great yesterday, it's okay today, and it will suck tomorrow, right? So if we want to keep on improving. So what ways can we improve? What ways can we encourage? As you may know, Sam Stokes has stepped up as sort of the czar of contributors, getting more contributors, and adding maintainers. Which reminds me, we should ask the maintainers. Let's do it now. What are there any new maintainers to be applauded or announced yet?
Nope, not right now. I think we're going to have a vote on Monday for a potential new maintainer to add.
It's terrific.
I do have a question. I don't know. So I don't know if it's appropriate now, but when we go and do some research and we realize that some key individuals or companies could be good contributors, is there a formal channel or an appropriate way to reach out to them? Is there some kind of process defined on how the baseline team interacts with the wider world that we want to bring into the project to provide feedback on specification or contribute or leverage their work into the specification and standard stream?
Yeah, Anish, would you like to say more about that? Like, I mean, we do have the docs, right? That the documents lay out a reasonably good way, a straightforward way of onboarding for the SSC, the TSC, the maintainers is quite detailed. How you lose that. But what else should we be doing there? So the standards group is one thing.
So as an example, if we have identified individual within funding companies or sponsor company who have already published and shared some work, but we don't see them actively contributing to baseline, we may want to reach out to them. So not waiting for them to come to us, but having this kind of avenue where we know how to interact and we do it in a consistent way. And it's back to the professionalism. We may not want individual, like I go to talk to that person and another person approaches that person in the name of the baseline team. So I think it will be very valuable to speed up the specification and standard, to have a formal process to invite those people either as guests or contributors or to a very specific working session. If we know in a given session, we will only focus on privacy and ZK snark. Okay, we know that those people we really want to try to get them to have their feedback and opinions.
So I'd like to answer part of this, and a great deal of how you all want to go and recruit for these efforts is, of course, up to the community. But when it comes to particularly the outreach that we want to do on the standardization effort, where the objective is to produce a specification document that advances through some formal processes, we do have a process at OASIS that we would probably prefer you all to follow, because it secures that IP provenance piece, which we are very, that's our job, right, to worry about that sort of thing. And so on the OASIS side, we have a team, Chet Ensign, Carol Geyer, Dee Scher, Jane Harnad, myself, who can go approach the businesses in a formal way to explain to them the IP policies and that sort of thing. Now, anybody can contribute to Baseline. It's an open source project. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to be anybody. They can do that. But when they start to get involved with the spec component, and if they're going to be contributing patentable ideas to that process, we need to secure a entity or an individual contributor license agreement as they do that. So this is just an opportunity for us to encourage that and also ensure that we got the docs that we need.
Okay, so the right way would be to come to you, for example, and say, oh, Jory, we have identified those individuals or those companies, and we'll let you reach out to them, and then we can engage. Okay, great, thank you.
This brings up one of the items on my little list here that I was hoping to come up would come up in this call, and it has, and that is the role of the maintainers team as we go into standards time, and also where we are working on this. So currently we have a Google Doc that we've been sort of using as a staging environment to kind of get things set up. But Jory, correct me if I'm wrong, that really needs to be now on the repo, because you don't want anybody committing new work to that without having to sign the ICLA or the ECLA.
Yeah, I think you're moving into the phase where we kind of are past that sort of initial ideation, and it's time to start moving the work into a forum where we can track history and changes in input. And so, yeah, that would be great.
So that would mean contributors to the standard would need to be working in .md and know how to deal with GitHub, which is not as easy for non-developers. But I think that we're just going to have to handhold people into it, right?
And we do have obviously some technical staff who's happy to assist folks with that process. They can also sign the ICLA and contribute via issues if they're not actually comfortable writing Markdown or editing a document and pushing code. Like if that is an uncomfortable process for them, then participation in the issues or on comments in the pull request is also fine for them to do. We still want their input captured via an ICLA or an ECLA signature, and we can send that to them out of band as well.
Joy, I have a question. Kevin Cunningham, what's the onboarding flow for signing that document at the moment? Is that only through GitHub?
Yes, so right now, if individual submits a pull request on any repository in our organization, there's a bot that flags them for CLA signature. That's the ICLA signature. The ECLA is required by individuals who are contributing on behalf of the company. We ask all of our sponsoring organizations to sign that. So if the company is a member of the project governing board or will have a number of its employees participating in the Baseline project, then we send that to them. That's actually a Drupal form, but it's migrating over to something more modern in the coming months. And so we capture it that way.
Okay, because as an alternative for the non sort of GitHub contributors, actually, as this kind of expands, it might be sensible to have kind of an alternative flow, even if like a website, for example, and it's as easy as embedding a DocuSign. Someone could just kind of, you know, download a link on their phone, click a digital signature, and then I think you may end up collecting more signees like that, basically.
Yeah, so we can actually give them a URL, even if without the pull request, there's a URL they can hit to sign. So it's not the bot on the PR ensures that there's a flag to sign it, but even outside a pull request, there's a URL that somebody could hit to sign.
Okay, where's that? Where would you find that at the moment?
I don't know if it's in the docs, but it should be.
Okay, yeah. Maybe on the website would be.
Yeah, in the docs.
That's a great ad too. On the website would be good too.
Yeah. So we'll take that up. Gavin, was good input on that. The rule though, Jory, is that if it gets, so do we maintain the same rule that we have for code, which is you can contribute all you like, but what's official is what's on the main branch, and the only folks that get to put that on the main branch are people that have signed off on the ICLA or the ECLA, or one or the other, and the maintainers are the ones that get to merge that to master or to main. Correct? So that's the way we protect IP, right? Is to say if it's not a main, it's not our IP yet, and that's what's official.
If it's on a branch in our org, it's our IP. So,
or rather, we're on deck if there is our IP violations in that in any branch, it's not okay.
We would really like to keep IP that is not ours, not in our organization. So my preference categorically, regardless of the project, would be for us to kind of encourage would-be contributors to fork the project and submit pull requests from their fork and kind of do it that way. There are some assumptions we can make about our TSC and maintainers who are contributing regularly, many of whose organization, whom's is that a word, have already signed the ECLA, that if they have the right access, you know, that they have signed the ECLA or the ICLA as appropriate. But yeah, for most contributions, we're probably going to want to take that from whatever fork that they've provided or they've been working on.
Terrific. Yeah. So, and I think maybe that answers an old question that we were noodling, which is whether or not somebody should get right access without being a maintainer. And the answer is on the core repo. The answer sounds like maybe we shouldn't, even for specs. It should be maintainers get to, you can fork and pull, but you can't write to any branch without being a maintainer. Is that right? Directly to any branch. Okay, so or to be a TSC member, you have to, and most importantly, you have to have signed the ICLA. So I think that informs a question, another item that I have on my little list here, which is whether or not the standards team, Anise and others, should be part of the maintainer team, or whether we should have a separate org. And I've gotten input mostly to the former, that we should. I think Sam, for example, not to out you, but you did put it in the Slack that you preferred the idea of standards people being in the maintainers team. Jory, can you give us some insights as to best practices on that?
I think I'd need to consider this a little bit more. We are in an interesting organization in that the Ethereum OASIS organization also is the home of other projects beyond baseline. So, you know, it is really trivial for us to create a new repository for the standards team, which is probably the default simplest thing to do, and create that standards team as maintainers of that repository. But I think I would want to make sure that I understand the desired flow and outcome a little bit more before I commit to that suggestion.
Yeah. Can I just pitch in as well? Just thinking about my experience with the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance and the specifications there. I'd envisage that as the standard kind of evolves, we'll probably find that there's kind of separate people who are really interested in working on the standard versus people who are writing the code, because although there of course is crossover with the skill set, we do tend to find that people looking at the standard, they're thinking about it more from the perspective of, does this actually make sense to someone reading it? Can someone go off and implement something off the back of it? Then of course, someone writing the code is thinking, okay, I'm trying to, get this specific thing to work, or I think, the code's going to be moving ahead, so to speak, whereas I think the standard's going to be kind of snapshotting it at points in time. And so I think the mindset of the people who are kind of really focused on each of those will be slightly different, and I'd envisage a more natural kind of separation between the two.
That is a good point. The question is, can we do that and manage it? I should like to see a lot more maintainers in our maintainers team. The fewer maintainers, the more risk there is. There are some bylaws on the maintainers about how many people, what ratio any given company can have in terms of number of people in the maintainers team. And a couple of those companies are bumping up against that limit. And we want to see more maintainers. We want to see more representation. We want to see more diverse perspectives. We have a 3 maintainer rule for committing any item, let's not call it code, but any item to the repo, to the main branch. We can, I don't think it's on the table right now. I haven't heard anybody wishing to change that number, so I will not bring it up. But if we had 10 code-oriented maintainers and some number of specs-oriented maintainers, the specs-oriented maintainers can be approving those polls without, I don't think, without doing any violence to any of the code work, and vice versa. I'm not going to lie. I think that from my perspective, and I'm just one person, and I need to put a lot of caveats in here because I'm the chair, so I don't want people going with my suggestion just because I'm the chair. But I've got to bring it up. I think I would prefer. My preference would be to see a single maintainers group for a variety of organization. I mean, just the organizational complexity is already going up a little bit more than I'd like to see. So that's my point of view, and I would love for somebody to shout me down on that. That would be a good thing. I'm not sure I'm right. I'm just saying that that's where my head is at.
I can't immediately think of any reason that wouldn't work, but I'm noodling still.
I think, Jory, this is a little new territory for OASIS, right? Because OASIS is, the OASIS open projects system. We're one of the vanguard in that. And so managing code and standards in the same team is sort of new even for you guys, right?
That's right. So we're very, very, very well versed in the standards piece. A number of our standards committees have been working on open source for a while as sort of like adjacent, they haven't really taken it, they haven't led with it, and so this is an interesting case where we're doing both in this project in a really exciting way. And the question that is I'm thinking through is what the requirements are for folks who are committing to a specification document that will become standard, and folks who are just interested in committing to the open source project. And so that is just I think that this is doable, and I just want to confirm with our legal counsel that we're in sharing that team and sharing those permissions that would be granted to that team, that we aren't, jeopardizing anything. I don't think so, but I am not a lawyer, so I will confirm that.
I'll put that in the minutes. We can table it for the next TSC meeting. I don't think we have any urgent issues on this, but I think it was a good discussion. Are there any final words on this matter?
In the interim, I think it would be fine for a maintainer or TC chairperson or anybody to create that standard repository, the repository for the work to happen in.
Very well. So moving on to, Anise, do you want to talk about anything else on the standard side at this point, or are we covered from the previous conversation?
We are covered for now. I think what we need on the standard side is just to have a first kickoff session and take it from there, really.
And that's being proposed for Monday at noon US Eastern, but that is not a locked time, and we will publicize that on the Slack to get input on that and who wants to be involved. Gavin, I'm glad that you've joined us on that. It'll be quite interesting on the legal and compliance side of things to have input there.
Every band needs a drummer, John.
Sorry? Every
band needs a drummer.
Right. I was a drummer. I was a jazz drummer, and not a bad one. And then I sold it to buy a motorcycle to go to California, but that was like in 1984. Anyway, moving on. There's a minor point here that I should probably mention, but I don't know that I want to bring it up more than just to get people thinking about it. And that is TSC, SSC, and the standards work. Nobody wants tons of meetings for every little thing all weeks. I have started to see people doing side meetings for various things, which is exactly as it should be. Ironically, the SSC is pretty packed, chock full of content every time. And the TSC has been less chock full of content. This is a notable exception. The technical steering committee is technically the technical steering committee. The SSC is the specification steering committee. But if we wanted to dedicate one of those two meetings to a longer conversation about standards, where it's much more of a working session every 2 weeks, oddly, the TSC seems like a good candidate for that. So I'm not sure what folks are thinking about that. I wanted to kind of, that's been on my mind. I wanted to vet it with you guys. And I think that it would be nice if we could move the standards conversation into one of the two biweekly meetings, so that we're not adding yet another meeting except for really specific work group, hey, we need to work on this clause and we need to argue about it kind of things, which we can do on an ad hoc basis. Jory, thoughts on that? Just briefly, I don't want to open it up too much, just for time's sake.
Thoughts are that rules-wise, you can do that. It's totally above board. And I think actually there's a lot of sensibility in it. It seems like the activities that are being undertaken on the SSC side, which have been highly productive, are really driving a lot of the direction of the project, and the TSC does seem to have been taking more of that kind of longer term sort of abstracted view. So it makes sense.
All right. Which leads us to the question of, so I promised to come back with elections information. Jory was good enough to have a session with me on this, and we are setting up an election SaaS application for doing the elections. I have sent out, did everyone get the note about elections? All the TSC members? I've already had a number of nominations or renominations, and I've had one party say that they want to spend more time on a sub-working group, but not on the TSC itself. So they'll be dropping out, which is good because we have more people that are going to want to be on the TSC. And the TSC, as you know, is a fixed number of no more than 11. It's basically 5, 7, or 5, 7, 9, or 11, I think is what it has to be an odd number. So please, if you haven't already nominated people, this is the time. We must do start the elections properly no later than 2 weeks ahead of the last day of September. So this is the time to do it. We could begin the election cycle as early as the beginning of September. I think we're going to need at least 1 week in September to get ourselves, set up and for people to sort of campaign a bit about why they want to be in. Jory, is there any best practice on the question of, do we need to run some sessions or some meet your candidates kind of a thing? Or I'm a little worried about low participation. I think people tend to just kind of go along with the flow, and we're not so big yet that we have a big argument about who's going to be on the TSC yet.
So there's a couple things that you typically see. A lot of times candidates will provide some kind of candidate statement, typically like on the issue or email, if that's chosen, to just sort of describe who they are, what company they're working with, why they're working on the project, what they hope to do, that kind of thing. That's really great. A lot of times they will, and I would encourage a nominee to do this, which is to say, hey, ask me anything. Let's get to know each other effectively. And that's really great. Not typically a lot of procedure or process around, a meeting or like a formal type videos or anything like that. I think that's probably too much. Yeah, that's typically what you see.
So that reminds me, I didn't do it because I was a little preoccupied with the release, but I will put up the epic for the elections, and folks can add their nominations if they want to do that out in public. So Jory made a point on our previous call that you don't have to. Some people are not comfortable making a nomination of somebody out in the open, so you may give those to me as the chair, and I will collect them into the candidate list without anybody knowing who was the nominator. So you can do that, or you can openly put it on a response to the issue or a comment in the issue that we'll be putting up. I will do that by the end of this week, and I'll make a note of it so everybody sees it. So you can nominate people. If you're on the TSC and you don't want to be on the TSC anymore, you need to tell me. And I'm going to, until somebody throws a foul on this, I'll just assume that anybody that doesn't tell me wants to be on the nominee list. Okay.
The other pattern you could take is an explicit opt-in, and that would certainly help you longer term. We've got a great group here. Everybody's really present and everything, but what can happen over time is you have the ghosts, folks who just aren't able to make it or are kind of just, they're there, and because it's always this assumed opt-in, they continue to be there. Sometimes what you want is the explicit, you're out unless you explicitly opt in, and it's auto, renewed. So it's fine. You just raise your hand and you can keep going. But we want to make sure that you are making the choice to do that year over year, as opposed to, you're just there, kind of hanging out, laying low or whatever.
That makes a lot more sense. I'm going to withdraw what I said before and go with what you just said, unless anybody else has, so just in the interest of time, trying to push that forward. Yeah, so opt-in. Does anybody disagree with opt-in?
The other suggestion I will make when it is appropriate is that, and that may be after this upcoming election, it'd be great to have a document that was very clear that you can point to people when they're nominating, here are the expectations for your time, what we're expecting you to bring, you know, to the table, kind of the types of candidates or the types of folks that we're looking for and the skills. So it's really clear who would be a great fit for the TSC.
Terrific. And fortunately, we have that in the docs, and the docs are quite explicit about that, and I think that's good. All right, so that's the TSC elections. We've discussed the standards work, and we'll table the matters of which meetings we do for which until the next meeting, so people can think about it. And with that, I think we're good. Last thing is, usually it's the first thing, but I'll share screen. And
John, will you remain the chair? How does that work?
Voted in.
So, okay, got it. I'm sorry if I missed that.
Yeah. If somebody else wants this job, then they should definitely nominate, and I will vote for them. Oops, sorry about that. So I'll just bring up that the minutes from last TSC are here. Uh-oh. They're not there. What happened? Ruh-roh. Somehow the minutes that I thought I had deposited did not get recorded. I will go and redo those, and we will ratify those minutes at the next TSC. I apologize for that. With that, I think we're good. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Cheers.
Oh, see you guys.